1340 WJOL presents A Rich Conversation with Rich Renik. No politics, no controversy. Just the lively art of conversation about interesting people in our world. Here's Rich Renik.
As our day continues, remember that no act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted. Hi, hello, how are you? And welcome to A Rich Conversation. I'm Rich Renik. And today my conversation is going to take place with a fella that I know has given us some music that is going to live in the annals of history in country music for a long, long time. Just listen to a few of these.
I'm in a Texas state of mind. I wasn't looking for romance. I just came here to dance. You're the reason God made Oklahoma. You're the reason God made Oklahoma. I'm sure missing you. I'm sure missing you. Do me right, or don't do me. Do me wrong, and I'll be gone. Do me good, and I will always be your lover from now on. It's a be together night, and I love to be with you. But I'm tired of sleeping all alone. My arms can't reach to San Antonio. So tonight will be another honky-tonk night on Broadway. She said I'm gonna hire a wino to decorate our home, so you'll feel more at ease here, and you won't need to roam. We'll take out the dining room table and put a bar along that wall, and a neon sign will point the way to our bathroom down the hall. I just can't help believing when she slips her hand in my hand, and it feels so small and helpless that my fingers fold around it like a glove.
Ah, there you go. You've got it. Davd Frizzell. Davd Frizzell, welcome to A Rich Conversation.
Well, hey, it's a pleasure, buddy. And I'm glad you're doing well. I'm glad everything's going good. As for the Frizzell people, we're doing pretty good, too.
I've got to start with, of course, the name Frizzell. For anybody who knows country music, of course, the name Frizzell is linked to your older brother, Lefty Frizzell. When we look at the legacy of the music that he recorded, that had to have an influence on you to get involved into country music. Talk about how exactly that happened when you saw what it was your brother was doing.
Well, you know what? He came out with his first big hit in 1950. Of course, I was a very young kid at that time. But I learned how to sing I Love You a Thousand Ways. I think I was about 8 or 9, 10 years old or something like that. And I had a radio thing down in Kermit, Texas, and had a radio show and there on Sundays. And I would sing Lefty's songs. And Love You a Thousand Ways, as a matter of fact, my wife Joanne somehow or other got a copy of that. I didn't know they ever made copies of that back in that day. But she's got a copy of me singing I Love You a Thousand Ways. I sound like a little girl singing that. and that was one of the first ones. I've been singing his songs ever since.
Now, when you talk about being on the radio at 9 years old, how does that even happen?
I don't know. I think back there at that time, I was staying with my uncle and his wife, and I was going to school there. And my dad and all of them he was working in the oil field. But anyway, I was staying up with my uncle, and he got me on that radio show. He took me up and introduced me to the people who owned it. So we got a chance to sing when I was a very young kid. But Lefty had taught me, gave me make sure that I had those songs to learn. And then I started touring with him back when 12, 13 years old. I started going out on the road with him. He took me to some of the shows with him, let me get up and sing and that kind of thing. But he would also take me to a recording studio. And I never could understand why he wanted to take me to a recording studio and have me sing a song or something. But later on, I realized he was just checking my voice out.
Oh, my.
He said, yeah, I just wanted to just keep track of how good you were singing. And so when I was 15 or 16 years old, I joined his show. I was with him for the next 4 years. I never left his side for 4 years. And I was out there running around with him and driving his stuff. So I must have been 16 when I had driver's license. And I did most of the driving. I did all the guitar tuning. I made sure the guitars were in tune and cleaned up. And did some of the important stuff, like keeping the beer cold, that kind of thing. But he let me get up on the stage, and I'd get up on the stage, and I'd do about 2 or 3 songs, and then I would bring him on. And then I'd stay up there and play guitar with him and do a little harmony work with him and play a little bit of harp. And in those days, during the touring season, that was like from March till about November, you might work somewhere like a Saturday, Friday, something like that. But almost every Sunday they had these big shows with everybody on there, with all the other artists on there. I remember meeting Johnny Cash for the first time, and I was about 16, 17 years old probably. And he became one of my absolute heroes and still is to this day. Just an incredible man. But I got a chance to tour with all these people. And every Sunday there'd be a package show, and there'd be all these different people on there. And I got a chance to watch every one of them and learn from them and laugh with them, talk with them, and run around with them. So I remember my brother telling me one time, he said, David, you're doing really, really well. He said, you're doing really good out there. He said, but I just want to mention that at the end of the day, we don't need another Johnny Cash. Johnny's doing very well with Johnny Cash. What we need is a David Frizzell. And he must have told me that 100 million times over the next 4 years. So when it got my turn to actually be somebody, I actually came out and was David Frizzell. So bless his heart for showing me. He taught me how to get on the stage, what to do while I was there, and how to get off the stage.
Now, while you were going on the stage as a young man, I could imagine that most people your age would be terrified to stand in front of an audience and perform.
Well, I guess so, but I just took after him. I watched him. I knew every move he made. I knew every little gesture he made. I didn't fear going up. I enjoyed going up. He was there for me in every aspect. He taught me everything. And then knowing everybody else, I got to know Merle Haggard very well. Became one of my absolute incredible friends, like a brother to me. What I didn't know from Lefty, I learned from Merle. He's an amazing guy. But, in those days, there was just all the great people were out there playing, singing songs, and I learned from all of them. It's been a heck of a career in my life from the start that I got with Brother Lefty.
What an incredible career, too. Now, Lefty, your brother, he recorded for Columbia, and you were signed by Columbia. Talk about the connection between the two of you and Columbia Records.
Well, I tell you, I was running with him, like I say, and I think I was 18 years old at this time. We had to go, Lefty had a session to do in Nashville, but we were living out in California. And Lefty's home was out of San Fernando Valley, and I was staying there with him. And we had to come all the way out to Nashville for the session, but we had a couple of dates to do on the way out. And so we had to stop and play these things. I tell you, when I'd go on the bandstand, do those 2 or 3 songs, and I'd always do a Buddy Holly song, and I'd always do an Elvis song. My brother Lefty let me do one of his songs. But on the way up from L.A., we had a show to do in Hobbs, New Mexico, and there was another one to do in Texas. When we were in Hobbs, New Mexico, we was there for 3 days. The second day we were there is when Buddy Holly died in that plane crash, and it just broke my heart. I thought I just kind of lost it.
So that's February 1959.
Finally, he mentioned to me. He said, "David," I got a good feeling about going to Nashville this time. He said, "I feel something going to happen." He said, "I think something's going to happen good for both of us. I don't know what it is, but he said, I feel good about it. So let's go on to Nashville." So we ended up. Don Law was the producer for Columbia Records in those days, and so we came back to Nashville. And Lefty had 2 or 3 songs that he wanted to get published, and so one of the guys came out that worked with Don and worked with the Gene Archery. Western Melodies was the name of the publishing company. So Lefty said, David, sing him those songs of mine. He said, because I got to go sing here a few minutes and I don't want to hurt my voice. So he said, so I grabbed the guitar and I played him those 3 songs. And the guy said, I'll take all 3 of them. And then he took off and went back and he told, must have told Don Law, said, you're going to have to sign this, David, because he is something else. so they called me and my brother downtown that same afternoon. And I walked in and they introduced me to Don. He said, David, he said, welcome. He said, he shook his hand. He said, shake my hand. He said, this is your contract for Columbia Records until we can get one made up. He said, welcome to Columbia Records. So I was on Columbia Records at the age of about, I think, 18. So that was just a great time. Freddie Hart, I don't know if you remember Freddie Hart.
Yes, Easy Lovin'. Easy Lovin', yeah.
He was a Lefty, brought him to California in 1951, I think it was, and helped him get on Capitol Records. And did it. It was there to help him get his first album done. I don't think there was actually cutting albums all at one time out there in those days. They'd do a session, and it'd be like 3 or 4 songs, and then they do enough in the year's time to have an album. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And they started putting albums out later on. But you probably know more about that than I do. But I think that's what they did. But anyway, I recorded my first sessions was a Freddie Hart song. That's how I got on Columbia Records to start with.
Love baby, ooh, love baby, ooh, love baby, ooh, that's right, you know it's right.
You're listening to A Rich Conversation. No politics, no controversy, just the lively art of conversation. I'm Rich Renik. My guest, Davd Frizzell. Now, back in 1970, it was your breakthrough song that probably got you on the map, at least on the charts where people were taking notice. And it was a cover version of a pop song made by B.J. Thomas.
I just can't help believing.
Oh, yeah, I just can't help believing. Well, you know, that really was. What a great song. I remember hearing Elvis do that one. But that was one of my, L.A. International Airport was my first song that actually made the Billboard charts. I had to have a hit. I mean, when I mean a hit, I needed the number 1 song. And I was with Buck Owens and all of them out there running with Merle Haggard and everybody. And I called my brother up. He was living in Nashville at that time. And I called him Sonny. His name to that family was Sonny. We only called him Lefty when he was out in the public, you know.
Oh, okay.
But Sonny, I called him. I said, Sonny, hey, man, I got to have a hit song. I said, I know you've had all those hits and you writing them and everything. I said, but you never gave me one. I said, I need a hit song. He said, well, David, somebody in Nashville is writing a hit song right now. He said, why don't you come on now? He said, where you at? I said, I'm in Bakersfield, California. He said, what are you doing in Bakersfield? And I said, well, I'm working with Buck Owens. He said, you're working with Buck Owens? Wow. He said, well, what are you working with Buck Owens for? I said, because I'm working. He's giving me a chance to work. He said, well, come on out here to Nashville. He said, and we'll help you get a hit song. So I flew out to Nashville. He had somebody pick me up, brought me over there. And he said, well, listen to my album. I said, I've got a brand new album. Listen to my album and see what you think. So I listened to that album. Every song on there was absolutely incredible. There's a song called That's the Way Love Goes. And it's still one of my favorite country songs of all time. It's just a great song. Mm-hmm. And his version of it is this knock plumb out. So he got out of the chart. He came back in. He said, what do you think of that? I said, well, I got to have that song. That's the way love goes. I just got to have that song. He said, David, oh, man, of all the songs you had to pick, he said, I can't give you that one. He said, because Johnny Rodriguez has cut it. And he said, so I can't. I said, I don't care if Johnny Rodriguez did cut it. I got to have it. He said, well, go ahead and take it, and we'll see what happens with Johnny's, right? So by the time I got back to Bakersfield and with Buck Owens, Johnny Rodriguez went number 1 with that song.
Yeah.
So I never got a chance to cut it. 10 years, I want to tell you, though, 10 years to the day that Johnny Rodriguez had that song, Merle Haggard cut it, and it went number 1. Great, great song. But I ended up meeting a fellow named Snuff Garrett. And Snuff was doing soundtracks for Clint Eastwood movies and Burt Reynolds movies. And I got a call into him, and I sent him a couple of songs. And on one of those songs, I put Shelly West on there with me. I have to sing the song and do a little duet with me on the Whitey Schaefer song. Anyway, so I sent that down to Snuff Garrett, and I called him up about 2 days after I sent it, just to make sure he got the tape, you know. And he said, David, he said, I got the tape and everything. He said, you didn't send me any pictures. You sent me a tape and a song, but you didn't send me no pictures. He said, send me a picture. And he said, of you and Shelly, he said, if you look anything like you sound, I'm going to make you and Shelly West the Sonny and Cher country music. And you know, he did exactly that. You're the Reason God Made Oklahoma is where it came out. That's how that came out.
There's a full moon over Tulsa. I hope that it's shining on you. The nights are getting cold in Cherokee County. There's a blue northern passing through. I remember green eyes and a rancher's daughter, but remember is all that I do. Losing you left a pretty good cowboy with nothing to hold on to. Sundown came and I drove to town and drank a drink or two. You're the reason God made Oklahoma. You're the reason God made Oklahoma. I'm sure missing you. I'm sure missing you.
Hear the city lights outshine the moon. I was just now thinking of you. Sometimes when the wind blows, you can see the mountains and all the way to Malibu. Everyone's a star here in LA County. You ought to see the things that they do. All the cowboys down on the Sunset Strip wish that they could be like you. Santa Monica Freeway sometimes makes a country girl blue. You're the reason God made Oklahoma. You're the reason God made Oklahoma. And I'm sure missing you.
I worked 10 hours on a John Deere tractor, just thinking of you all day.
I've got a calico cat and a two-room flat on a street in West LA.
You're the reason God made Oklahoma. You're the reason God made Oklahoma. I'm sure missing you. I'm sure missing
And thanks to Clint Eastwood putting it in a movie called Any Which Way You Can, that was our first, that was in 1981. And that was our first number one song.
Now, David, Clint Eastwood always had the reputation of selecting the music that was going to be in his motion pictures. Talk about how that happened with You're the Reason God Made Oklahoma.
Well, let me tell you how that happened. Snuff Garrett and Clint Eastwood was together. They're looking at some art show or something, I think, down in Palm Springs area. And Snuff called me after this happened. He called me. He said, I had Clint Eastwood in the car coming back to L.A. He said, I knew he wasn't going to jump because I was driving 70. He said, so I just played You're the Reason God Made Oklahoma for him. And after the song played, he said, I looked over at Clint, and he said he was quiet for a minute. Finally, he said, let's put that in my next movie. He said, that is a great song. Let's put that in my next movie. And Snuff Garrett said, I'll do you one better. I'll give you half of the song if you help me get it all going. So they did. They put it in the movie In Which Way You Can, and it came out on this. Clint Eastwood was involved with everything, and the song went number one. That was my first number one.
Now, selecting Shelly West as a partner to sing with, how did that come together where the two of you saw something that could develop?
Well, let me tell you how that happened, I guess. My brother Alan, my younger brother, there was 9 of us kids in the Frizzell family. 9 of us. Lefty was the oldest, and my brother Alan is the youngest. He was working and fronting Dottie's show out of Nashville. And I was out of Bakersfield with Buck Owens. And he was fronting the show. Shelly was singing harmony, was one of the harmony singers on the show. And him and her got together. They got the friendship started, and they ended up leaving Dottie and actually went down to Florida to start with, and ended up coming out to Nashville and showed up at my house, the Bakersfield area. There was a knock on my music door, and I said, "Come in." It was Alan. I hadn't seen him in quite a while because he'd been out in Nashville. And he said, "David, I want to introduce you to Shelly." And she was standing in the doorway, and he said, "Sing David a song." She sang Bartender's Blues a cappella and knocked me to the floor. That's how good she sang. And she's beautiful to go along with it. And so I thought right then, we got to do something with this lady and Brother Alan and myself. So we started touring around and taking them with me. Finally, I bought a nightclub out of Lindsay, California. It's out of between Bakersfield and Fresno. And I put them in there, and they worked 4 or 5 nights a week. And I'd go in there, and I'd sit in with them. We'd work with them. And finally, I got the songs from Whitey Schaefer. Anyway, they sent me some songs, and I went to the Buck Owens studio where we started recording these things. And this one song sounded like it had to be a duet. So I asked, Shelly was playing bass. She's playing bass for the group and all that. She's an amazing lady. I think if you think about it, David Frizzell, Lefty Frizzell, Shelly West, Dottie West. It was a natural way of marketing it.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I'm sure that hit his mind to start with. So then he took the song and for one of us, we recorded an album, and he played some of that for Clint Eastwood, and that's what happened. Clint Eastwood loved it, and then Snuff Garrett offered him a half of it and all this kind of stuff. And so they became partners, and Shelly and I get a chance to have quite a few hits, as a matter of fact, with Snuff Garrett and Clint Eastwood.
And the partnership that you had with Shelly West, I think 1982 was the year. It was a big year because you had a hit with Shelly West, another honky-tonk night on Broadway. But wait, there's more. Now you go solo with a drinking anthem that also went to #1.
Well, I tell you what happened. When I was making the deal with Snuff Garrett in the beginning, I told him, I said, "You know what?" I said, "I'm really excited about doing a duet and having a pageant, doing all that kind of stuff." He said, but I want more than that. He said, "Well, what are you talking about?" I said, "Well, I want to do some duet stuff. Me and Shelly West do some duet stuff, and then we want to do some solo stuff." I said, "Shelly," and so, "Well, let's do a duet album. Let's do a solo album on either her or me, and then we'll do another duet and that kind of thing." Mm-hmm. And he said, "That's just a great idea." He said, "But it's going to be easier to push you guys as a duet to start with." And now I knew that because David Frizzell, Lefty Frizzell, Dottie, it's a natural way of making that happen. And it did happen exactly that way.
Now, the solo song that you did go to #1 with, kind of an unusual name. "I'm going to hire a wino to decorate my home." How did that song come to you, David?
I tell you what, Dwayne Blackwell wrote some incredible songs. He actually ended up writing a song called "Friends in Low Places." You probably heard of that one.
Yeah.
Anyway, the song came to me through Snuff again. Snuff Garrett ended up getting the song from Dwayne, and Dwayne had actually cut it himself to try to get a record deal. He gave it to me to listen to. I knew, just like the Oklahoma song. When I heard that, I knew that song was a hit. I don't know, I felt it so strongly. And the wino thing was the same way. Anyway, we recorded it. Dwayne Blackwell came down he was living up around the Sacramento area, and he came down to the session, and he walked in there. He said, "David, how you going to sing that song?" I said, "Well, I don't know, but I think I'll sing it exactly like you did." When he recorded himself to try to get a deal, that's how I recorded it right there, and it went #1.
She said, "I'm gonna hire a wino to decorate decorate our home, so you feel more at ease here, and you won't need to roam. We'll take out the dining room table and put a bar along that wall, and a neon sign will point the way to our bathroom down the hall.
You know, that's still one of the songs that people still play out there after all this time. That song is still getting a lot of airplay. I tell you what, Dwayne Blackwell was one of the great songwriters. And I remember every time he would see me after the Wino song, every time he'd see me, man, he'd run, hug me, pick me up, throw me around, say, thank you, thank you, thank you.
While you were thanking Dwayne, and I think all of your fans are thanking you for the memorable music that you've given us. And not only the music in the past, but you're still going strong. Now, David, before we wrap up, let's talk about this special project you're working on.
I'm doing this special thing on Brother Lefty. And there's a documentary getting finished up about Lefty. I'm doing an album in respect to Brother Lefty, and it's a tribute to Brother Lefty. And on that is I've got people that have something to do with the Frizzells, has something to do with Lefty. Bill Anderson, say, for instance, he co-wrote Saginaw, Michigan. And we did a duet on that song. Shelly West came in the studio, and her and I did a duet on Love You 1,000 Ways. And I wrote a special song for that, and it's called Lefty, Merle, and Me. Me and Merle Haggard did If You Got the Money, I Got the Time. That's going to be on there. Gene Watson and I did The Long Black Veil together. So that kind of thing is on there. So that's coming out.
We'll be able to track the progress of your project here, David, on davidfrizzell.com, David, Frizzell.com. Once again, where will we go now, David, to get more information about where you are performing and some of your new music? Where do we go?
Well, it's davidfrizzell.com. You should be able to find just about anything there.
And we wish you all the best going forward. I can't thank you enough for taking time to be with me on a Rich Conversation and sharing some of this great information here. And I'll tell you what, maybe I can invite you back after the project is completed and we can talk about that.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll make sure you get a copy of it. Every song has something to do with Lefty in some way.
I love it.
Oh,
once again,
thank you, though, man.
Once again, David Frizzell, thank you so very, very much, and we'll look forward to hearing more about the project and getting more information from davidfrizzell.com.
Appreciate you, buddy. Thank you, man. Had a good time with you.
Please mark your calendar for 1 week from today for another Rich Conversation. I'm Rich Renik, and thank you for making us a part of your day.
With Lefty, Merle, and me.